Episodes 7, 8, and 9 of Better Call Saul Season 6, in my opinion, form a trilogy of masterful and highly emotional storytelling. I dare say these episodes, a nearly 3-hour long narrative, are some of the best that television has to offer as a serious art form. These 3 episodes tend to mix their genres, which really places us as viewers even more on edge and emotionally impacted. Plan and Execution primarily utilizes a comedic plot structure, with its shocking ending leading into the horror plot structure of Point and Shoot, which then leads us into the tragic plot structure of Fun and Games, capping off the prequel timeline and fully being in the circumstances of Breaking Bad. We'll be exploring each episode's respective plot structure, and how both the adherence to and violation of these structures connect each episode narratively and thematically, and how the trilogy as a whole connects to the overarching tragic transformation of Jimmy McGill that we all knew was coming, only we didn't expect to get there in this exact way. I'll be doing this video essay in parts to make the analysis more digestible and easier to follow, but I will compile all the parts together in a supercut afterwards. So let's continue exploring these plot structures. Last week, we covered the dark comedic structure of Plan and Execution. Now, we'll explore the horror plot structure of Season 6, Episode 8, Point and Shoot, what I would call Better Call Saul's scariest episode. This is the comedy, horror, and tragedy of Better Call Saul's final episodes. If it's your first time here, my name is Quentin. I'm a writer, teacher, and sometimes performer. It's time yet again to analyze the complex characters and precise artistry of this series. I'm assuming if you clicked on this video essay, then you're familiar with the premise of the show, so I don't really need to summarize anything. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to keep up with this 3-part video essay. Let's get into today's analysis, the horror of Better Call Saul's Point and Shoot. So we'll be using Christopher Booker's text, The 7 Basic Plots, as a guide for this analysis. I already explained in the first part about the 7 basic plot structures we tend to utilize when telling stories, at least in Western culture, so I won't go over it again. Basically, a plot structure is the series of progressive points a narrative fulfills to tell a clear and satisfying story, typically ending with the protagonist having changed in some way from their experiences. Now, where it gets really interesting is when narratives violate basic plot structures, primarily by combining different genres into one singular narrative and thereby mixing different plot beats, keeping the audience engaged and uncertain. And this is exactly what these 3 episodes in Better Call Saul accomplish. So let's look at the horror plot structure of Season 6, Episode 8, Point and Shoot. The horror genre tends to utilize a plot structure known specifically as overcoming the monster. Horror stories generally feature some kind of threat, a literal monster, a supernatural force, a murderer, or even family members, that characters either manage to overcome or fail to overcome. Just like with comedies, there is variation in the content of these stories, but they generally tend to follow the same progression in their plot structures. Not all horror stories are violent, graphic, and full of jump scares. If anything, the most effective horror stories are ones that build an unnerving atmosphere, complemented by an imposing threat. It's not about graphic violence or pure shock. It's about the fear of the threat, and the fear that our characters may not be able to overcome the threat. As outlined by Christopher Booker, the typical structure for an overcoming the monster narrative consists of anticipation and the call. Quote, the hero learns about the monster from afar, including its powers and reign of terror over the nearby community, and the hero accepts the call to defeat the monster. End quote. Dream stage. Quote, the hero prepares to fight the monster while it is still a comfortable distance away, although the distance between the two is decreasing. End quote. Frustration stage. Quote, it's here, the monster, and it's even worse than we thought. The monster's power is revealed in all its terrible glory, and it looks like our hero is in way over his or her head. End quote. Nightmare stage. Quote, cue the epic battle music, because it is on. And it's not going well for our hero, who is being absolutely pummeled by the monster. But wait, just as all hope is lost, the major chords start peeking through on the background score, because the tide of the battle is about to turn. End quote. Death of the monster. Quote, the monster is defeated, hero emerges victorious, and the grateful people present him/her with treasure, a kingdom, or something to rule over. End quote. With these plot points in mind, let's now explore the structure of Better Call Saul's Point and Shoot, and how it both adheres to and violates this typical structure. In the opening teaser to the preceding episode, Plan and Execution, Lalo Salamanca's shadowy, creepy presence as he spies on the laundromat from the sewer foreshadows this very structure, especially in its lighting and compositions. In fact, the vast majority of point and shoot is filmed in heavy darkness, with shadowy silhouettes, and a general atmosphere of dread and tension. And with a ton of handheld cinematography, not typical for the style of the series, but more in line with the cinematography of not only Breaking Bad, but also horror films, especially slashers. Some of the choices in shot compositions, like this one of Lalo standing over Jimmy and Kim, remind me of slasher film compositions, like a lanky Jason Voorhees holding a weapon before going in for a kill, though he never uses a gun in any of those movies. Lalo is no doubt the monster closing in on Jimmy, Kim, Mike, and Gus, with his unexpected arrival and murder of Howard placing us firmly in a horror plot. Although Lalo, surviving the assassination attempt at the end of Season 5 and trying to uncover evidence of Gus Fring's plot against the cartel, has been gradually closing in throughout all of the previous episodes, not just Episode 7. And that's one of the interesting things about the mixing of plot structures in these 3 episodes. The first 2 stages of the overcoming the monster structure have already been accentuated before Lalo's murder of Howard. In Season 6, Episode 2, Carrot and Stick, with a smug look on Hector Salamanca's face, Gus is able to deduce that Lalo is indeed alive. Thinking the assassination was successful, and thinking he can focus on his next move with Nacho, Gus is shocked by the realization that Lalo is still out there. Now Gus anticipates that Lalo will come after him, so he starts the preparation for a final defeat. Gus accepts the call to finish him once and for all, hopefully. In Season 6, Episode 4, Hit and Run, and Episode 5, Black and Blue, we see Gus in the dream stage, having a connecting tunnel between his house and a safe house, having a body double, and preparing for the possibility that Lalo will discover the underground lab construction by setting up an opportunity to disconnect the lights and hiding a gun. Lalo is still a comfortable distance away, in Germany, yet he is closer than ever to finding the proof of Gus's plan, and thus the distance between the monster and our hero is decreasing. Then we reach the frustration stage, as signaled by Lalo's arrival and subsequent murder of Howard at the end of Plan and Execution. We may have abandoned the overcoming the monster plot progression of earlier episodes in order to be planted in the comedic structure of Episode 7, but even so, the threat of Lalo was playing in the background. And now we've reached this frustration stage and are fully planted in the horror of point and shoot, rather than staying in the dark comedy of Plan and Execution. Not only are Jimmy and Kim indirectly responsible for Howard getting killed by Lalo, but now he insists that one of them go to Gus's house and attempt to shoot him as a diversion. Jimmy insists Kim does it so she won't be left alone with Lalo, obviously. Jimmy and Kim knew Lalo was dangerous, but they never could have envisioned the monster would just turn up at the apartment like that and murder a former colleague in cold blood. Jimmy is tied up and gagged, left alone with Howard's dead body, while Lalo infiltrates the laundromat undetected. This monster is bigger and badder than we thought. Lalo has even managed to outsmart 2 cool and calculated characters like Gus and Mike, allowing him to enter the building he's had his eye on since returning from Germany. As many like to say, Lalo is built differently. Indeed he is. Now we come to the nightmare stage. Gus, having heard from Kim that Jimmy managed to talk Lalo into sending her, suspects that something else is afoot. And sure enough, Gus is correct. Lalo emerges from the darkness, shooting Gus's only men with him and now having him cornered. He is indeed like a slasher movie killer, evading the eyes of others, laying out coordinated traps, and leaving a path of death and destruction everywhere he goes. What does the monster want more than anything in this episode? He wants proof that Gus is attempting to betray the cartel and become the drug kingpin through building a super lab. He starts filming Gus, forcing him at gunpoint to show him the underground construction. The handheld footage of Gus at gunpoint could be viewed as a slight homage to found footage horror films like The Blair Witch Project or even Paranormal Activity, another indication of the influence of the horror genre on this episode. There's no immediate escape for Gus, it's now or never. Either the monster succeeds or the monster is defeated, though some of the suspense is a bit undercut by the prequel nature of the series. Unless you're starting with Better Call Saul, the vast majority of viewers know Gus will get out of this situation alive. But still, will Gus be the one to finally defeat Lalo? Indeed, he is the one. We enter the death of the monster. Gus, managing to distract Lalo with his rant against all of the cartel, shifts over to the light cord, disconnects it, grabs his hidden gun, and points and shoots. Not at Lalo directly, but where he thinks Lalo might be within the darkness. The look of fear on Gus's face always sticks with me. He keeps pressing the trigger even after clearly being out of ammunition. That's how terrified he is of Lalo deep down. He has to be sure Lalo has been overcome, switching back on the lights and seeing him gagging on his own blood. He smiles one last time, as if conceding to Gus evading him for good this time, almost a mirroring of Howard conceding to Jimmy and Kim and their successful scam. Gus, as the hero, vanquished the monster. But similar to the comedic structure of episode 7, there is no victory celebration. Gus is not bestowed with any prizes or riches. In fact, no one is celebrating the demise of the monster who has infiltrated and damaged all of our characters' plans. Instead, the sun starts to rise, the light returns, and the bodies must be dealt with. This also reminds me of a typical ending to a slasher film. The killer may be defeated, but the damage remains. The cavalry comes in to deal with the death left behind. Jimmy and Kim now have to double down on the Howard fiction to cover up his murder, and thereby cover up the cartel. And just like the incomplete final point of the comedic structure in plan and execution, the monster's defeat transitions us into the tragic plot structure of fun and games, rather than the typical celebration of the monster's demise. We see Lalo and Howard buried together under the lab, with Mike looking pretty remorseful about Howard's undeserved fate. Gus's drug empire was literally built off of the blood of enemies and innocent bystanders. The scam was successful, the monster was defeated, but the tragic consequences for our characters have just begun. We'll explore the tragic plot structure of Season 6, Episode 9, Fun and Games, next week in the final part of this video essay. Thank you so much for watching. I wanted to thank each and every one of you who have been watching, liking, and commenting on these video essays. My Patreon is linked below if you want to support me in making these videos and get some perks. Or hey, why not throw me a tip by clicking on the 3 dots below? Or become a member of the channel. You can earn some badges and get early access to videos like this one. Any amount you can afford helps a lot. Thank you. A special shout out to our first channel member, Vermilion Star. Great to have you, and thank you so much for the support. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.